It is said that in order to instate oneself in the Nerd Kingdom, a YouTuber must make a video on how to become a better GM.
Let's do this!
Yeah!
Hello, fellas and lasses. Welcome to the Mind Effects, the show where we talk about all things geek with a focus on TV shows, movies, video games, tabletop RPGs, anything that comes to my mind. My name is Felix Alexander, and I have a confession to make. I really like tabletop RPGs. To the uninitiated, tabletop RPGs are board games in which you play with a group of people. Now they have a narrator, and the narrator narrates a story, Now the players play characters within the story, and they also narrate what their characters' actions are. There are many games like this. There's Dungeons & Dragons, which is the one that people know the most. There is Exalted. There's a few others. Actually, I'm in the process of making one myself. But the point is that it is played all around the world and it is a very fun experience. But it is particularly fun when the DM, the Dungeon Master, or in most games it's called the Game Master, the GM, if the GM knows what they're doing. The GM has a lot of responsibility, not only because they have to narrate the story to the players. Game Masters also become arbiters of the rules and whether or not certain actions are appropriate or not, depending on the context of the narrative. With this video, I intend to give my outlook, my 10 pieces of advice to GMs everywhere, regardless of whether you are an advanced GM or you're just starting as a GM, to make sure that you can create a better experience, or rather a more complete experience, not only for yourself as a GM, but also for your players, which is the reason why we do what we do. And the first piece of advice that I want to give GMs out there is share and set all expectations at session 0. This is the opportunity you have to make sure that you pave the road for what's to come. Session 0 is where all of the different perspectives and preferences start syncing to make sure that the story from here on out and the gaming sessions from here on out actually flow. There are a few things that I think GMs should keep in mind when having session 0 and sharing and setting these expectations. The first expectation that I think should be cleared right off the gate is what kind of game are players wanting and expecting to play, and how does that compare or contrast to what kind of game you as a GM are expected to run. Do we want to have a very quirky, fun, devil may care kind of game in which we're just doing whatever nonsense we can think of? Or do we want to play a game that's extremely grueling and it's very challenging and there's everything is out to get you and kill you? It is very important to set these things up from session 0, because if you do not, some players could come into the game expecting one thing, then they receive something else, and it could not end well, because players don't get engaged and they're not having fun, and then it's going to ruin it for the rest of the players, and it's definitely going to make you feel horrible. Oh yeah, and do not forget to make sure you also set the expectations on behavior, as in what things are going to be allowed and what things are not going to be allowed while you're playing with this group of people. What topics are off limits. You never know when you're going to have a person who has a certain trauma from their past, and going through an experience like this in the table might be extremely uncomfortable for them. You do not want a whole session to be dismantled because you failed to set this expectations at the beginning, and then you touched a nerve and it really just broke someone mid-session, and now it's awkward for everyone and it's painful for that person who just went through something horrible and now is reliving it in an experience that should be fun. And when defining these expectations, don't be afraid as you go forward to change them a bit. After a couple of sessions, talk to your players. Ask them, hey, are you liking this kind of gameplay? Do you want to start experiencing something else? Are you getting bored with this? Or are you really liking it? They'll tell you. Players will tell you. And believe me, they want to have a good time, and you want them to have a good time because that's where you have a good time as well. The second thing, or second piece of advice that I would give GMs everywhere would be to know the game's mechanics. All tabletop RPGs, despite the rules being different, are based around two principles. Just two simple principles. Action, reaction. That is the driving force of every single interaction that happens in a tabletop RPG. You want to make sure that you know how the mechanics of the game system you're using works, because you want to make sure that you're able to determine what is the best reaction to every action. By knowing the mechanics of the game, you're making sure that you're serving opportunities up in a silver platter, not only to your players, but to yourself. Because you don't want to be caught in a situation where their players are trying to do something and you're just there completely dumbfounded because you have no idea how that is going to work. It is going to happen, but if you could limit that situation by simply making sure that you know how the game works and know the general mechanics, the better is going to be for you. The third piece of advice that I have for you is not only knowing the mechanics of the game, know the world. This world that you've created, or the world that someone else has created if you're using a supplement or some other kind of external material, has people in it. There are certain interactions that happen in this world. If you know how people interact with the different aspects of this world, say, does the world have an ethereal plane? How does this world handle death? Do people hold funerals? Do they bury their dead? Do they burn their dead because they don't want them to come out as undead? All these things are aspects and elements that you definitely should know in case a situation like this presents itself as the players are just going about the adventure, so you're not caught with your guard down. It is harder, but it definitely makes the game feel richer. And then from knowing the world, my fourth piece of advice would be to make sure you know the characters. Players are playing characters that weren't just injected into the world. They were there in this world before you guys started playing. So you have to make sure that you know what their part in this grander world is. What role do they have in the society that they're a part of? And also, how can you as a GM make sure that they shine for the decisions that they've made at character creation? Not only is it going to make the player feel like they're a very intrinsic and necessary part of the team, it's also going to make sure that the players around see value in that team member. Oh yeah. And there will be players who are going to try to hug all of the attention. If you identify one of these players that always wants to be the one who solves everything, talk to them before the session. Make sure you have this conversation of, hey, I know that you're really eager to play, but I would like the other ones to shine as well. I would like them to have their own moments in which they feel that they're important. My piece of advice number 5 is to take a break every once in a while, even mid-session. Take this break, this opportunity to go to the restroom, eat a snack, drink some water. This break is not only good for the players, it's also very good for you. It happens a lot that players take a path that deviates completely from what you were thinking on doing. This break is an opportunity for you as a GM to reevaluate how you're going to get the players back on track into your story, or even if you're just going to let them go for it and you're just going to make sure that the path completely deviates. That is fun too. And Speaking of breaks, how about you use this opportunity to, if you're liking this video, and apparently you are since you're still here, you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the notification bell icon so you can stay up to date with all the videos that I release. This is my second video, and I'm super excited about that, and there's more to come. My sixth piece of advice for all you game masters out there is to please warn your players if they're about to do something completely stupid. Please, please, please. If a person is going to make a decision that is really going to affect or harm their character, please nudge them and remind them that there could be some consequences that they could face because of their action. You do not want to be put in a place where a player does something super stupid because there was one detail that they overlooked, a detail that you maybe mentioned before, maybe you didn't, and then they lose a character or are dealt a large amount of damage, and then they don't know how to deal with it, and that's going to bring the whole team down just because they overlooked something. I'm not saying always save them from danger, especially if you've been very careful with letting them know that there are dangers coming, but if you haven't done that, don't penalize your players. And the other thing is, usually when people play, that is the last thing you do in the day. After they've been working for possibly 8 hours or dealing with just real life stuff and tension. When you come to the table, you're trying to bring everything you have, but the truth is, sometimes what you have is minuscule. Do not punish your players for being tired. Now, the seventh piece of advice that I have for you guys and GMs out there, reward players with experiences. It's not the money that they like. It's not the weapon. It's the ability to interact with the world in a different way. That's what people like, for the most part. There's also people who just like money. But I believe a game can be much better when players don't just earn money, they earn experiences. And this is what I mean. Maybe give them a party pet, like a wolf that can track people. Give them a hawk that can send messages. Give them a pack mule that can carry their stuff. That is, in many cases, much better than any weapon or item that they can get, because it's not just a reward that you're giving to one person. The whole party could really enjoy this. Another thing you can do to reward your players is give the characters just a session in which it's just a nice time. Give them experiences, not just consumables. The character development opportunities there and the interactions they can have from this are amazing. So yes, I'm all for this. Reward people with more than items. Number 8. As a GM, you have way too many responsibilities, and despite your hours of planning, your players will react in some unexpected ways. If you take notes, you can save yourself the trouble of trying to remember the things that you said, those names for towns or for non-playable characters that you just made up in the moment, because they're there. And also you can go back into your notes and see what kind of details you gave that you could tie up with future sessions. This next one, I don't want to sound mean. I know you're a very busy person. Maybe you're studying, maybe you're a parent, maybe you just have a full-time job. I understand. But everybody in your table is meeting up. They're expecting to have a kind of experience when they sit in your table. And they're taking their time to go meet with you. My piece of advice number 9, and it's almost not even a piece of advice, it's more like a mandate. Be prepared. I believe it's very irresponsible and disrespectful to your players if you just show up there with nothing. And I'm not saying have a full story arc developed. I'm saying at least have a main goal, what are going to be the main challenges they're going to face, and how you're going to weave it all together. Please come prepared to the table. And finally, my golden rule is that the rules in those books that you have bought are really more like guidelines. You are the game master, you're the arbiter, you're the master of ceremonies. You are the person who decides what experience you want your players to have. If you find that a rule is really making the players feel like it's a little bit of a drag, just alter it. It's your world, it's your experience. Don't be afraid to just break the rules. I'll just say this though, make sure you remember when you broke that rule or bent that rule and under what circumstances. Because you do want to be fair. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are there other pieces of advice that you guys have for GMs? Make sure you let me know in the comment section below. Or I also have a Twitter, which is right here. I'll try to put it right here somewhere. I still don't know how YouTube works, but it should be somewhere around there. There you can just send me some tweets and send me questions. I'll try to answer them, and maybe if I have enough of them, I can have a video in which I'm just going to answer your questions. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. I really like that. So if you're liking this kind of content, you like this kind of video, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on that notification bell icon so you can stay up to date with all of the videos that I'm planning to throw out. I have about 30 videos lined up. I haven't recorded them yet, but 30 things that I want to say to you guys, and I would love it if you could hear it as soon as I post it. So yeah, it's up to you guys. Thank you for watching this video. This has been The Mind of X. My name is Felix Alexander, and from the bottom of my heart, GMs, players, and people everywhere, have a great day and peace.